What's going on, everybody? Deal or No Deal here, and today I am bringing you a review of the Dark Pictures Anthology's Switchback, the newest PSVR 2 title. So to kind of give some context going into this game, I was a early adopter of the PSVR 1, and one of the first launch titles I got was Until Dawn Rush of Blood. And I was a huge fan of Until Dawn, the main game. I think it's one of PS4's better titles and a must-play for mostly anyone who's a fan of cinematic experiences and campy horror movies. So Rush of Blood was a nice celebration of the series and a really cool showcase of what horror games could be like in VR. You know, the amusement park horror vibe, it being in a roller coaster, having to shoot different obstacles and enemies and whatnot. The gameplay loop was fun. Now, fast forward a few years and Supermassive has been pushing out the Dark Pictures Anthology's games to some success. I have played each one, but I have not enjoyed each one. Little Hope and House of Ashes were more favorable, and I actually did play those through all the way. Whereas Man of Medan and most recently The Devil in Me, I thought were weaker outings, and I didn't finish either one. So you have a franchise that's been very hit or miss, but now they're putting out a spiritual successor to Rush of Blood using Dark Pictures. So going into it, I was excited. Again, the franchise has been hit or miss for me, but it's horror, so it's a good setting nonetheless for this type of game. And the gameplay is very much the same from back in the day of 2017 when they released the first one. So where does that bring us today? Playing through a few hours of this game so far, I feel like I have a good idea of what this title has brought in terms of experience. And it's very hard to talk about. I think for everything good it does something that misses the mark. I find the gameplay to be quite fun. You know, it's nice to have another game like this where you're on rails, and the roller coaster itself is very immersive. I'm not someone in real life who enjoys roller coasters. They scare the hell out of me. And it's kind of the same in here. When you have the slow ascent, going high up, and then you shoot down a hill, and you get that hit in the feeling of your stomach, or that feeling in the pit of your stomach, it's quite scary, and it wigs me out, even though I'm sitting in a chair in the middle of the room in my house. So the game has succeeded in that regard. It really much immerses you in that. And I also wear a neck fan when I play VR games to kind of help any sort of nausea. So that also helps add to the experience because you feel the wind passing by. And the shooting mechanics are fine. Again, same as what they were years ago. I wouldn't say it feels super accurate like some of the most recent VR titles. I don't believe it uses any sort of eye tracking to help with aim assist. But the game has unlimited ammo. It's kind of a, just spray and pray for the most part. So really no complaints on the controls. But something that I noticed immediately, and a lot of people online are also really talking about, is the graphical fidelity of this title. And as you've seen through some of the footage so far, it might not be as apparent as maybe when you're in the headset, but it's not a super sharp title. The textures are really low res for a new game in 2023, and on PSVR 2 no less. And while I hate to judge a game solely on its textures and its graphical fidelity, that's a big point of contention when you have a brand new headset and all the games coming out right now are really taking advantage and really showing off that tech. So we have beautiful looking games. Horizon Call of the Mountain, Kayak VR, Resident Evil 8, and Gran Turismo's VR modes are both phenomenal in how they look. And this game looks like it's a PSVR 1 game. And that sounds dramatic, but it feels the same as Until Dawn Rush of Blood. And it's a shame because it doesn't really justify its price tag, which we'll get into later. And on top of the graphical fidelity, you also have really bad texture popping, which is very distracting. You also have the occasional frame drop, which this is the first of PSVR 2 games that I've really had that problem with. And the issue with that, it's an issue in any game, but when you lose frames and it kind of skips, it really is nauseating. So when that does happen, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does occur, it kind of really pulls me out of the experience. And the same goes for the texture pop-in. The texture pop-in is quite egregious here. The game does not use foveated rendering at all, so it's just loading everything at once, but you can really tell when it's loading. You'll watch things go from like really mushy, smooth textures and like really start to define itself as you get closer. And these things just really pull you out of that experience, which I think is probably the biggest offense a VR title can do. VR's whole shtick is to immerse you and really make you believe that you're there. So when you have these cases of frame drops or the texture pop-in that's happening quite often, it just kind of reminds you like you're not really in this experience. And that's a dire shame. And not a complaint that I had with the first title being Rush of Blood, so quite a problem. But it seems like Supermassive as a whole kind of has an issue with fidelity in their games. Their main Dark Pictures titles, while they look good texture-wise, they also have problems running with, constant frame rates. Some games look better than others. It's quite weird. So, in terms of visual fidelity overall, not great. But I don't think this title should be judged solely off of that. I think the gameplay loop here is quite fun. Like I said, the roller coaster feeling is super believable. When you're moving fast and you're just shooting things down, it is fun. And I will say it does do a decent to good job really putting you in scary circumstances. And the footage I've had, I showed like one strong section of one level, and I have two smaller snippets of what I thought were cooler parts to really showcase maybe some of the scarier things it can do. I do believe the game's lighting, its fog, it does do those things well. So it does create the hard to see areas, and then when things pop out, it can really be scary. So it does do some things right. Just wish it looked a little nicer when it did it. So, moving on, the other thing we need to talk about is the price tag of this game. So, Until Dawn Rush of Blood was a $20 title when it came out. It was a no-brainer. At $20, that game was an instant pickup for anyone who bought the headset. So, with PSVR 2 and Switchback, this is a $40 title. And I think that is hard to justify. You have a plethora of games to play right now on the headset. Games that run better, that look better, that offer more than what this game is offering at a cheaper price or a comparable price. And at $40, it's just hard to recommend. I do think price point is something that needs to be considered when you're talking about it. I think this game is worth playing. I just wouldn't recommend that anybody spend the full price on it. To me, this feels like the $20 Rush of Blood experience. And if this game were to be bought at $20, I don't think it would be bad at all. Again, it's familiar territory for anyone who played the first game, so $20 is a no-brainer. As you start going up, though, it becomes harder to justify, and you could spend that money on other titles. At $30 to $40, I mean, you can basically buy any of the PSVR 2 games that I mentioned before. The Star Wars VR title, while a bit more expensive at $50, is also a really good experience from what I understand. So, I can't in good faith recommend that this game be bought at $40. And unfortunately, I spent that. So, I don't dislike the purchase, I don't feel bad about it, but I would urge other people, if you're not super crazy about the Dark Pictures franchise, or, a super fan of that previous VR outing, I would suggest waiting. And who's to say that they can't fix this game in some regard with patches and updates and whatnot. Maybe it becomes better to recommend and justify its price tag. But at this time, I think it's best to wait. Wait for a sale. I would say $20 to $25 is that sweet spot to where I could easily recommend this to most people. You know, if you have a PSVR 2, many other games to play. And games to play in the future. We have the Walking Dead games coming to the headset, I believe, next week. So I recommend you save your money, wait, and then maybe pick this up on a sale. Cannot recommend it at $40. But anyways, we're coming up to the end of the footage. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this video can help some make an educated purchase. And I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you, and take care.